Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is, to me, an exciting day because of what is being offered up. Over 2,000 years ago, it was said that whatever you believe, so is it unto you. And that quote has lasted for a long time. It's found in a number of books. It's been used in a variety of ways. But I want you to get that input, that whatsoever you believe, so is it unto you. Let's take this and put it into our everyday living and see why it is we have such a struggle with this part of us that so wants us to believe what it is saying, what it is generating, what it is projecting, that it will do almost anything and everything it can to keep us under that influence. Now, for a number of years, we have been studying and paying attention to that aspect of us known as ego. It's the one that, hey, without it, we wouldn't have the life that we have right now. So, for example, the rolling of the drum, the distraction, the intention of the distraction. Because you see, one thing for sure about ego, while we can't live without it, it has changed and developed in such a way that it not only asks of us, it demands of us our belief in it. The illusion of ego, however, it is necessary in order for us to play this game of life. Notice how I slipped that in there, the illusion of ego? The reason I did is because so many of us for so long believe that we are the ego instead of having an ego. I'm not the jacket I'm wearing, but I do have a jacket. I'm not the body I'm in, but I do have a body. And to take it a step even further, I'm not the ego that I find resonating in me, speaking through me. It's a fascinating discovery to make when you realize you are not the ego. It is completely dependent upon our belief in it in order for it to be something. So while we can on one hand say, all right, a certain amount of ego is necessary in order to participate in life, but then look again and say, how much suffering does ego cause you? Are you aware enough to realize it? You see, this is a part of our awakening process. This is a part of actual developing of a sense of spirituality, because it takes you and puts you in a place of paying attention to what's going on, to the behind-the-scenes energies, to realize that ego is a real behind-the-scenes player. We all know, when we become sufficiently aware, that it feeds off of fear, it feeds off of complaints, it feeds off of worry, it feeds off of problems. But at the same time, it tries to present these in such a way that we buy into the things that it's presenting as if we're the ones that are actually the thoughts we're thinking, the feelings we're feeling. It really requires of us to be present and pay attention. But once we do, we start realizing how all of this chatter that's going on inside our heads has nothing to do with who we really are. You see, one of the first and most important things to remember is that ego is afraid of being found out. Because once it's found out, once it's recognized, that is the beginning of the end for it. People can spend years believing all the stories that are being told by ego, and only to later on find out they were all a lie. So, here's a point, as that is a frame of reference. We can literally decide to believe or not believe, or even create any story we want about our lives. But it's a guarantee that ego does not want us to find that out. It gets its sense of self out of our identifying with it. If we are able to be present and recognize it in the moment without identifying with it, endgame has begun, right then and there. It masquerades as us, causing us to think that we are the ones generating the ideas and beliefs in our minds. But in actuality, we are the awareness that is behind all thoughts, all ideas, all feeling. Again, let me say that to you. Ego masquerades as us, causing us to think that we are the ones generating the ideas and beliefs in our minds. But in actuality, we are the awareness behind all of those thoughts and all of those feelings. Once we come to terms with the fact that it is not us, we can start to see where our ego is causing suffering in our lives, but we become aware of it from a place of presence rather than identification. Let this settle into your developing way of working with your own ego. Be present with it without identifying the story that it is presenting. From this level of presence, we can observe the ego without judging it and without fighting with it. One of the first tendencies, of course, is that when you find out about ego, that you want to kill it. Well, that was for me anyhow. But you see, that's just what it wants. Because again, you're giving it the energy that it needs to be sustained. You're actually taking it and treating it as if it were real, when the fact of the matter is, it isn't. It's an illusion. So take this into account and realize it wants to stay behind the scenes. If right now, during the course of this conversation, you're finding your ego saying, no, none of that is true, it's all a lie, don't listen anymore, you can be sure why it is, because it feels threatened by such information. Because again, this is exactly what ego does not want. The minute we accept it, it can no longer fight with us. The minute you accept it, the fight's gone. We can simply recognize that it is trying to feed us a story and observe the story rather than believing or buying into it. Look at this as another faculty that each one of us has that we are in the process of developing, and that is the faculty of observation. You see, when we can be in pure observation rather than belief, we transcend the fear or problem the ego is begging us to believe in. And it is at this point that we start running the show. We decide when we can use our ego to our advantage. I mean, it is there to be used, but at the same time, to be present with it and pay attention. So when it starts generating up stuff that's translating into suffering, we can be present, accept what is being generated, and cease to identify with it. All right, let me give you an example. Let's suppose somebody's angry. Not that any of you ever dip into that energy experience, but nevertheless, we can talk about somebody else and feel pretty safe. Okay, so we have somebody who's angry. If the person can completely accept what is, which is, in the moment they are angry, and they feel the anger. Rather than focusing on the story that ego is building up as to the why they are angry, who is to be blamed, and all the other nonsense that goes with ego's story, the anger won't bother them for long. And this is something for you to put into practice. When you find yourself getting all torqued up about something, in the moment, acknowledge it. Accept it. I'm torqued. But instead of buying into the story as to why you're torqued, let that part go. Recognize that that is what ego is putting out there as bait for you to bite. If you don't take the bait, then you're not going to stay under its influence. And you will find that surely the feeling you were experiencing will come to pass. It'll pass away. It'll just dissolve. It'll turn into something else. So, bottom line is, don't fight with your ego. Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to kill it. Surrender to it and make friends with it. Observe its nuances so you can get an idea of how it's working. And when you begin to recognize the thought pattern that is starting to cause more suffering than you would like, simply observe it without believing in it. Simply observe it without believing in it. Observe it without believing in it. The ego feeds off of belief. And wherever belief is placed, exactly the energy that will be amplified. Now, we all know the power of feeling. All you have to do is generate a feeling, and you're going to feel its energy in you. So if you and yourself are working with ego, and you find yourself getting to that place of being torqued, being set to anger or resentment or bitterness, worry, concern, jealousy, any of those good things that you used to find so much pleasure in experiencing, when you get to that, instead of believing in it, simply observe it. Then you will actually be taking away the energy that ego requires in order to look like it is a live being. Think of ego as your imaginary friend. Now that's a shift right there, isn't it? From enemy to friend, shifting from master to servant. And you see, this is what this is all about. It's about taking an inner look and having that be a really clear, focused inner look to see who it is in you that causes you all the problems, and you're going to come up with the realization it is ego. But at the same time, you're getting it really, really clear that for you to actually have ego become your servant instead of your master, you need to be present with it. You need to open up and accept it for what it is, how it operates, and at the same time, stop buying into the belief it's trying to get you to hold on to, and that is, it's you. It isn't you at all. The only way it can become you, can become me, is when we identify with it and act out our identification. We stop acting out our identification and we begin to have it be something that will serve us as we teach it and train it to do so. So, when these things happen, turn the table on it. Shine the light of your consciousness on it. Get yourself to that place where you say, oh my God, there for a moment I was actually believing you were real. Not that it would necessarily like to hear that in the moment, but you're stating a statement that has power to it. It is the power of liberation. It is the power of transformation. It is you coming to the place to where you can truly say, whatsoever it is that I believe, so is it unto me. I take my power away, and a different reality greets me. Thank you for your attention.
For more information about the Metaphysical Church of Enlightenment or the Rodin Foundation, please go to our website at www.rodin.org. If you have been inspired by the revelations shared in these podcasts, please donate to the Rodin Foundation's ongoing efforts to help others help themselves at www.rodin.org/donate.